Hey everybody, my name is Andy Sokolovich, and I am a Gallup certified strengths coach and the owner of UnleashStrengths.com, nestled right here in the small Midwest town of Clinton, Iowa. For those of you who haven't seen the show, Thematics is a video series created by Unleash Strengths to highlight the massive impact the StrengthsFinder assessment and the book StrengthsFinder 2.0 has had on now over 11 million users. It's our belief here at Unleash Strengths the best way to promote its effectiveness and proven results is to interview those who've experienced the power of strengths-based development firsthand. Each person being interviewed today is intimately aware of their strengths and wants nothing more than to share their strength story. For more information and to view a recorded version after we're done with this broadcast, you can go to UnleashStrengths.com to schedule an interview. We're always looking for people to interview. You don't have to be a coach. You don't have to be a strengths guru. You just have to love the concepts of strengths-based development. Go ahead and shoot me an email, Andy, A-N-D-Y, at UnleashStrengths.com. or give us a call at 815-441-2219. Hit us up on social media. That's right, Facebook and Twitter. We're cruising around those platforms as well. Facebook.com/UnleashStrengths and Twitter.com/@UnleashCSF. Again, it's UnleashCSF. So today we have Jeanette Dupree with us. I'm pronouncing her name as I can do it. There's another way to do it, and you may share that with us as well. So, Jeanette, please introduce yourself. Let us know where you're from, and share with us your top 5.
Hi, Andy. So yes, I'm Janet Dupree from South Africa. I live in Johannesburg, and I have a business called Engagement Dynamics. And I'm a coach, I'm a facilitator, I'm a consultant working in the field of engagement. In terms of my strengths, I was saying to you just now, Andy, I don't have top 5 because one of mine is maximizer. I have a top 9. So my top 5 are input, relator, maximizer, individualization, learner, and then I also pull in strategic, responsibility, connectedness, and self-assurance.
I love that.
Yeah, so that's pretty much me.
That's awesome. I love how Maximizer's like, yeah, I see that top 5, but I'm going to blast right through that, and I'm going to absorb 9 out of and I'm going to bring it in. I think that's so cool. So talking about StrengthsFinder, who introduced it to you and why? How did it ever really enter your life?
So my very first encounter with StrengthsFinder was when I was involved in a multi-level marketing company approximately 16 years ago, and they had a fantastic support system for just growing us as leaders, as people. And one of the books in the system was Now Discover Your Strengths, which actually predates StrengthsFinder 2.0. And so I went through that book, did the test, got the results, and said, you know, pretty typical. This is just so me. Mm-hmm. And I was impressed with the tool. I have a background in psychology, so I have some understanding of psychometric tests, and there were just some things about this test that were different from anything I'd encountered before. So I read the book from cover to cover. As you see, I have input and learner, so I read the book and got to the end of it and thought, I would so love to work with this tool. Mm-hmm. And nothing much came of it after then. I mean, there was obviously some impact, and we'll talk about that just now, just in terms of my own personal journey. It unleashed a whole lot of things for me, made a whole lot of things make sense for me, but I didn't have the opportunity to do much with it. And then and I think we're going on now probably to your second question, Andy, but a couple of years later, I was sitting at my desk doing some work, up pops an email, and we heard that Gallup was sending somebody to South Africa to do some training of coaches. And I'm pretty convinced that I was the first person to sign up for that course because I was so ready for it. I didn't have the money in my bank. I zapped back an email straight away saying, I'm in, I'm there. And got to do what in South Africa we do level 1, level 2, level 3 training. Went on to do all 3 levels within the space of about a year. And now not only do I sort of really relish my own strengths, but I get to help other people discover theirs as well. So it's become very much, well, a huge part of my life. Huge part of my life.
That's great. Now, I want to revert back to something you said earlier. You said you read the book, you took the assessment, and something about the assessment and the concept of strengths-based development really appealed to you. And you said you noticed there were some differences compared to other personality tests that are out there, or dubbed personality tests. What were some of those differences?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Sure, Andy. I mean, that's a really great question, and it's something that I get to talk about quite often in my work. I always say to people there are 3 or 4 things that I really like about the Strengths Finder test, particularly in the context of organizations where I work. The first is the language that it uses is everyday English. If I contrast it, for example, with a Myers-Briggs, nobody understands if I say to them, I'm an INTJ. That doesn't mean anything to the average person on the street. A Myers-Briggs type assessment is too complex for the average non-trained person. So that's the first thing I love about StrengthsFinder. It uses everyday English, and I think it's something that everybody can relate to. The second thing is that it is positive. It's focused on what's right with people. And yeah, I certainly explore vulnerabilities with my clients, with my coachees, but at the end of the day, this is about what's really great about you. Another tool that I'm relatively familiar with is the Enneagram. And in my exploration of that, there's so much of value in it, not knocking the tool. But I was just offended by some of the stuff that was said in there, because there was no sense of, this is what a well-managed number 7 looks like. It was a number 7 can do this and does that, and so yeah, for me the positivity is just so amazingly wonderful. And then the third thing that for me is really powerful about StrengthsFinder is that on the one hand it can be so simple. It's 5 words. And in the beginning I just coach my clients and for myself just get to know those top 5 and what they mean individually. But the flip side of that is that there's this great depth of complexity once you really go into it, and particularly if you are looking at the dynamics between the different strengths. And that is really exciting for me. I'm a maximizer. I've got connectedness, I've got input, and I've got a learner. I love to explore, and I don't like anything that's one-dimensional. So for me, it brings me both simplicity for my clients at the level that they're at initially, but plenty of scope for further development.
Yeah,
I think maybe one other thing, Sandy, Andy, and that was just the structure of the test. Again, with a little bit of insight into psychometrics, this test is so clever. It is so cleverly designed. Again, it's simple, but the results are profound. And I can't fault the underlying structure of the actual test, where I think I can find fault with some other tests.
Yeah, I will say that I'm pretty green. I don't have a lot of knowledge when it comes to some of the other personal development tests or assessments that are out there, but I have heard what you just stated several times, more so the simplicity of StrengthsFinder. It's easy to understand, and that's why I absolutely love it. And we share that because it's so easy for me to introduce somebody to their top 5, and within 5 or 10 minutes, they get it. I mean, they don't have a depth of knowledge or how to unlock those or really claim them, aim them, but they know how to actually identify their top 5, and that happens almost immediately. And that's why it's a tool, obviously, that I've become really passionate about as well.
Yeah.
So how would you say that becoming strengths aware, knowing your top 5, or for you, your top 9, how would you say that has impacted your life? What changed after you became aware of those 9 different talent themes?
Because I have a long list of responses. I've been working with this tool for 15 years now. But I think the very first thing was it helped me clarify my sense of purpose. And I'll give you some illustrations just pulling on my strengths. One of the things that I discovered when I did my coach training was that my learner has quite a profound impact on me. And one of the things that learner does is it confuses me sometimes, because I've discovered that I've learned skills right down to my number 30 talent. Story behind that, which maybe I'll tell just now. So there were a lot of things I could do, and it was very hard for me to actually decide what I should be doing as opposed to what I could do. Mm-hmm. And Strengths kind of clarified that for me in a really profound way. So I think that was the first thing that it did. It shaped my language. I'm more conscious of the fact that I use language that is aligned with my strengths. And I'm also more sensitive to the language that other people use. And because, and that kind of feeds naturally into the next thing, which is that it's made a profound difference in terms of the way that I understand and relate to other people. Now, I mentioned to you that I have a background in psychology, so I would like to think that I always had a fairly deep level of insight into people. I also have relate and individualization in my top 5, so again, that's a natural bent for me. But beginning to understand strengths language and the way that strengths manifest in people has made me a lot more sensitive to the strengths that are driving their behaviors, even when those behaviors may not be comfortable for me. It's made me at least understand where they're coming from, and see that quite often, I think, a little bit more positively than I might have in the past. So I think that was certainly something. I think strengths help me manage my time. So, and this relates, I think, also to the purpose quest, or the purpose benefit that I mentioned just now. Being much more aware of what I should be doing means that I am able to say no to some things. Now, I mentioned that I have responsibility in my top 9, and it's my top execution talent. And so I don't find it easy to... Andy, I've got to plug in my computer. Hang on one sec.
Yeah, take your time.
Sorry, I thought I'd done that. Otherwise, I'll lose you forever. I have responsibility, which means that it's not easy for me to say no to people. Mm-hmm. Being much more aware and conscious of what I'm really good at has allowed me to say, no, I'm not doing that anymore. And an interesting example of that was, I've always known that I'm a leader, and in certain leadership circles, there's a very strong, well, I experienced a very strong imperative to be of service. And I'm fully subscribed to a sort of servant-based leadership approach. But what I ended up doing in these environments was doing a lot of what I call dishwashing. So, I'm going to serve in order to earn the right, as it were, to be a leader. And so I washed a lot of dishes, and what people saw was a really good dishwasher. And I've learned now to say, you know what, yeah, I can wash dishes, and if there's a need to wash dishes, I'll wash dishes. But that's not where I'm going to add most value. I'm going to add most value when I'm helping you to be strategic, when I'm helping you to see a system that is going to make your organization more effective. I'm going to be more effective when I'm leading and coaching and teaching people. That's where I add most value. And it's been very helpful for me to gain the confidence to be able to say that to people. Because I think I had a bit of false humility in a way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you said. I love the whole analogy of a dishwasher, because that really. See, I'm gonna show everybody my cards, because one of the reasons why we do this podcast is because I'm a little selfish. So I not only want to give people an opportunity to share their insights, but I always take something away from every single interview that I do. And I am going to take that, because that really applies to me as an individual. For so long, I was trying to reach for just a low-hanging fruit, because that's what I was recognized as being good at. Even though I had the ability to do things on a larger scale, I just got into a little comfort zone. And I love how you said, yeah, I can wash dishes, but this isn't where I'm going to make the most impact. This isn't where I'm going to be the most effective. You're underutilizing my talents.
Yeah.
And I think that's so insightful, and I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for sharing that story.
Awesome. Yeah, agree with you. Maybe just to take that a little further, Andy. I mean, today yesterday, I've been at a conference for the last 2 days in my field, which is organizational development. And the very best speaker of the conference was the guy who was first up yesterday morning. And he's head of organizational development for a very significant organization in South Africa. It's an investment bank. And he was doing his thing, and throughout he was asking for participation. And most people were not very verbal, and I responded to a few things. And the sort of third opportunity that I had to say something, he looked at me from the front of the room. I was right at the back of the room, and he said, "Will you come and work in my organization?"
Yeah.
That wouldn't have happened 10 years ago.
No.
You know, I'm getting to play in the most exciting places. Again, something maybe that just to illustrate two of my strengths. I have strategic, as I said, at number 6, and I have relator at number 2. And one of my profound learnings out of that was that my relator really enjoys deep, meaningful interactions with people. But my relator enjoys or my interpretation of deep and meaningful is shaped by my other talents. And one of the talents that is most profoundly shaped by is my strategic talent. So I often say to my coachees who have that combination, we have a soul need as relators with strategic to be in the inner thinking circle. It isn't about our egos. It's about the fact that we are nurtured and fed when we are in that environment. And I'm finally getting the opportunity to do that. And it was a hunger that I had for so long. It gave me, I was wounded because I'd had that door shut so many times. And somehow knowing my strengths has just enabled me to step into that space. And it's very special.
It is very special, and it's a confidence booster. And I always look at strategic kind of like, I call it my if this then that theme, because whenever I think of strategic, I mean, whenever I'm talking to somebody, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say next, but I'm thinking about, I want to foster this relationship because then this may lead to that, or I want to foster that relationship because maybe I can do that for them. So I love strategic. I love how it plays in. It's obviously my number one. Thanks again for sharing that story. And yeah, strengths is, I always tell everybody, if you want a boost of confidence, if you want to feel great, sure, go to the gym, get your hair cut, buy a new shirt, whatever it is that you need. But if you want to feel great for the rest of your life, start investing in you. Start investing in your own talents and show the world what you have to offer. And I think it was a really good story you said about that presenter saying, "Would you come and work for my organization?" Because now, at least here in the States, we're starting to see more and more organizations reach out to people who have natural ability, the natural talent to perform that task. 20 years ago would say, "Cool, come work for my organization. Do you have at least 3 years experience? Do you have a master's degree in this? Do you have this? Do you have this?" All these prerequisites or hurdles that prevented you, from ever making an impact in that organization. So, yeah,
couldn't agree with you more.
So what was, you may have shared it with us, and I tried to read between the lines, but the aha moment, the moment where you saw StrengthsFinder, you took the Clifton StrengthsFinder assessment, and you realized, hey, there's some serious traction to this. This isn't just, we discussed your 3 things that you noticed immediately off the bat that separated from the other personality tests or development tests or assessments. What was that aha moment for you?
I think there have been so many, Andy, but maybe one little story that sort of emerged while I was doing my training. The guy who was training us was a fabulous guy called Joe Cavanaugh from Gallup. And Joe was standing in front of us, and I was kind of in the front row, listening eagerly. And he started telling us a story about a woman who had empathy at number 1, and how she was kind of saying to him, "How can this be a strength? It's been a curse my whole life." And I found myself getting very emotional. And I thought, oh, quick, let me have a look and see where my empathy is on my profile. And it turned out that my empathy was number 30 out of 34. Now, I had trained as a therapist, and I was shocked because I didn't think of myself as not being empathic. Mm-hmm. So I then took a really careful look at the profile, and the first thing that I noticed was the comment I made just now, which was that actually I have developed skills in all of the talents right down to number 30 because of my learner. Mm-hmm. But what I also noticed then was some of the other talents that were in my bottom 5. And 3 of them in my bottom 5 are empathy, developer, and restorative. Now, just quickly for those who maybe don't know as much about those, empathy is all about exactly that, understanding people's feelings. Developer is all about going on a patient, slow development journey with people. And restorative is all about fixing problems. So I'm not into fixing problems. I'm not into going on slow developmental journeys. And I don't have much empathy. I don't focus on feelings. I focus on facts. So those 3 together don't make for a very good therapist. And it was the most amazing aha moment, because suddenly I had permission to never do that ever again in my whole life. Right. Suddenly I realized why my psychiatric nursing practice never took off. Because what I would do as a maximizer is anybody who came to me for therapy would be given a huge stretch goal that really was going to take them 6 months to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And there was no point in them coming back to see me the following week. And for many of them, that was completely overwhelming. So switching from being a therapist to being a coach was just a natural progression from that realization. Now, there are times when obviously I still tap into that skill, and I can do that if I need to. But that, for me, was one of the most profound moments of my whole life. Gave me permission to not do some stuff.
I love that. I love that word, permission. I think that's amazing. And something kind of similar happened. Not really similar happened to me, but it gave me a very strong realization that I'm not the type of person, and I talk about this in past podcasts, and people have said, well, Andy, when I sit across from somebody and I do strength coaching one-on-one, I find that I'm least effective in a one-on-one situation. It's not because I don't care about that individual. It's because I don't have the ability to tap into those really deep-rooted empathetic feelings and desires to learn more and more and more about them. I want to show them a possibility, but like you, I want to show them a goal at the end of the rainbow, and it may be 6 months down the road, but I'm not willing to take those little itty-bitty baby steps. And that was something that I had to kind of learn, and now I've had to curtail my coaching business around that, because one thing that I do get a huge amount of satisfaction from is getting people motivated about StrengthsFinder, and it could be 30 people or 3,000 people. That charges me, and that's when I'm most effective, and that's when I'm in that strength zone. So yeah, there's so many cool insights or realizations that come with just being aware of the type of individual you are. So that's a really good aha moment.
So what I'm hearing there is your influencing talents, your desire to shift and shape where people are going, and I mean that's awesome. Your communication talent, your woo and ideation and futuristic.
Yeah, and I knew it was always there. I knew it was always there, but like you said, once I figured it out and I saw it there out of those 5 talent themes, I was able to give myself permission not to ignore my lesser talents, but to realize that those aren't going to be how I'm most effective. It's the dishwashing thing all over again. That's not how I'm going to make the most impact. So awesome. It's such a cool thing. So so now you said you've been using this for years and years now, and when you talk to somebody new about StrengthsFinder, and we'll say, they're not a professional connection, maybe just somebody you met, and you're trying to softly introduce the concept of strengths-based development and the Clifton StrengthsFinder, how do you go about doing that, and what kind of resistance do you get? I mean, I know here in the States we get a lot of resistance because everybody, maybe works for a large corporation, and every quarter they're taking a new personality assessment, and they're like, great, here we go, another one. What is this going to show me? How do you get by that kind of that fear or or perception of the test in general, the assessment? And what do you say to them to really get them to realize this is a good thing?
So again, Andy, one of the things that has really benefited me is understanding how to use my strengths in the selling process. I haven't actually read the sales strengths book, but just by natural sort of self-awareness, I have looked at that. There we go. You're going to pull the book off.
Well, no, this one here, Discover Your Sales Strengths, actually is a really, really good one. I believe, from what I understand, this came out well before strengths-based selling, and this is something that, as you said, selling with your strengths, this is a book that I just wanted to kind of share with everybody. It's called Discover Your Sales Strengths, and just wanted to mention that before I forgot about it. But go ahead.
Awesome. Well, that's exactly it. So I don't have communication, futuristic, the kind of strengths that you've got. So for me, communication is not the way that I'm going to do this. I've realized that my greatest way of selling strengths is, in fact, my relator and my learner, probably. So I'm inherently a teacher because I have learner, and I like to form deep, meaningful connections with people. In fact, until I've done that, it's very difficult for me to communicate with them because I want to understand who they are. So one of the things that I've taken to doing is finding the real key people that I want to do this with. So, for example, I work with heads of organizational development, heads of HR. And as I meet people in the sort of networking circles that I'm part of, because I have connectedness, I isolate people that I think that I've already connected with in some way, and I invite them to go on a strengths journey with me. I offer them a free strengths finder test and free coaching sessions. Now, that may not be everybody's style, and I get a lot of flack for it from a lot of people. But for me, that allows me to connect with them, and they're always people I know can potentially get me more business. So I give them an experience of it with a view to much bigger business opportunities. I did that with somebody at the end of last year. She's asked me just to give her until March because she's busy with some stuff, but she's talking to me about taking 55 people in her organization through Strengths Finder as a result of having spent 2 hours with me looking at her own strengths. So it's the one thing that I do. If I'm just talking in casual conversation with people, I usually just say something like, I work with this absolutely awesome tool that identifies people's innate talents and focuses on their strengths. And usually that just makes them a little bit more curious. And if they ask more questions, I can then answer them. So tend not to be pushy at all. Just open up the conversation, and then, as I say, as soon as I have the opportunity, and I've had, I wouldn't say I've never had anybody refuse the Strengths Finder, but I think sometimes the people I'm trying to get into are just too busy. But I would say I have an 80% success rate with that approach, which suits my profile.
Excellent. No, I love that. And you touched on something really key there. I think a lot of strengths coaches are people who do this professionally. When they offer somebody the assessment code and they take it and they don't really do anything with it, it's not because they don't buy into the concept of strengths-based development. They're not interested in bettering themselves. They just may not have a lot of time right away.
Yeah.
People are extremely busy. So I kind of had to jump that hurdle in the beginning because I would think, great, nobody likes this. How am I supposed to communicate the effectiveness of this tool? And then somebody sat me down and was like, dude, they just don't have time right now. Like, don't beat yourself up. They just don't have time. And I said, oh, okay. And then I had to learn some patience, which was hard for me.
And I found that if I can get in the door with that first coaching session, they then make the time because they get hooked in and they really love it. So once I'm there, then it's good.
Absolutely. Okay, so say you and I are sitting in a room and we're standing behind somebody who just finished taking their assessment. Their report just popped up. They hit Control-P on the keyboard. The assessment prints out. They're sitting there looking at it, and they turn to you and say, now what? What would some advice would you give to those people?
Okay, cool question. So one of the things that I do with my coachees is that I ask them to take 3 different color highlighters. And I ask them to identify with those 3 different colors on the report 3 things. The first is, which of these statements really just resonate with you? This is you, no question about it, makes absolute sense. So they'll do that in the 1 color. The second color is, this really isn't me at all. This makes no sense. And then the third color is, so this is me, and I know it's me, but actually I'm not very comfortable with this. Mm-hmm. And so that's a cool starting place. It helps them to really get some form of identification right up front with the stuff that makes sense to them. And it allows them to express their doubts, which I think is very important in a coaching process. You know, we can sometimes be so positive about something that we don't allow people the space to say, hey, but this doesn't make sense to me. And then when I'm coaching them, I work with 2 concepts. The one is the concept of dynamics, which of course we spoke about just now. Mm-hmm. So usually I find that if they're saying this isn't me, that highlights a dynamic thing. So it isn't you, because actually there's another strength that supersedes this, or that is working together to in some way counteract that. And I find that that's usually helpful. And then where they're saying this is me, but I really don't like it, that generally will point me to a vulnerability. So it's a strength that's not as well managed as it could be, and it's getting them into trouble. Mm. And so that for me is a great starting point. The other thing that I do is that I use a slightly modified form of the Gallup Q12, which, if your listeners don't know about that's Gallup's engagement survey, and says, well, you know, how happy am I working where I am, to put it very simply. And often by them just doing that little assessment and then looking at their strengths, I can help them to immediately make some connection with the results by showing them how their strengths are impacting on their work experience. So maybe I'll just give you a quick example. One of the questions on the Q12 is, do you have a best friend at work? And I remember coaching one of my first clients is an HR manager who has, in her top 5, she has got all execution talents and thinking talents. She doesn't have any relational talents. In fact, when we did her full 34, they're all right down in the bottom 10. And when she got to that question, she marked it a 2 out of 5. And so I already kind of knew that she probably would do that. And when she did, I said to her, well, she just looked at me, she said, I don't care. I don't come to work to have a best friend. And I said, well, that makes perfect sense in light of these strengths. Mm-hmm. And so she was able to make an immediate connection with it. It validated the tool for her. So I do that, with people, just immediately give them some hook that they can say, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I don't know if that answered the question.
That did. And I believe, just using your example, there's probably a time in that woman's career where she had some kind of engagement with a superior or a manager who maybe gave her some advice and said, hey, you need to start reaching out to some people here and making some friends at work. Just because maybe others see her as too focused on the goal and not really willing to create some kind of friendships, but that's not her. That's just not the way she's going to function. And if she's forced to do that, she's going to be distracted and she's not going to be as effective. So, that's...
In fact, there was another very cool story, just chipping in very quickly. I had guessed before I saw her full 34 that her empathy was at number 34. And we had a big laugh because when the results came out, that's exactly where her empathy sat. And she told me a story on one of the days I was coaching her, that particular day, one of her staff members had phoned in and said, oh, she's not coming into work. And she was so angry with this woman until this lady sent her a picture on her phone of she'd injured her hand. Mm. And when the picture came through and she saw the injury and the extent of the injury, she suddenly, it wasn't that she became empathic, But what kicked in was her achiever. And one of her other talents, and right off the bat, I can't actually remember what it was, but suddenly she had something she could do because she had analytical. So she had the facts, and she suddenly knew what she had to do for this woman. And suddenly she was able to be much more compassionate, even though she has empathy at number 34. And that was a really interesting story about this particular woman and how she does function as an HR manager in spite of having no empathy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great how this stuff all works. I mean, both in your professional and your personal life, it's there. And if you look at it and you study the dynamics, the solution, or at least some kind of insight, is always available.
Yeah.
So looking at your top, I say top 5 here, but in your top 9, Janet, what is your favorite? Do you have a favorite theme? Do you have one that you absolutely kind of get giddy with when you see it come in full charge? Is there that one that stands out?
Okay, so that's a horrible question for somebody with input, because people with input, or if you understand the Enneagram, Ennea 7s don't like to choose at all. We want it all. But I think so here in South Africa, we talk about our core theme, and I always illustrate that for my clients by saying it's kind of like the head of the arrow. It pulls all the others in, and that would be my maximizer. So several years ago, I had a boss, and when he interviewed me, the words that stuck out for me, and I still recall them, was, "Janet, I'm looking for somebody to make the kite fly higher." And the greatest compliment he gave me was on the day that I left. He said, "You made the kite fly higher." And that's become my little metaphor for my maximizer. I love to make kites fly higher, and I use my connectedness and my strategic and my learner and all of those other talents, my love of resources, to make kites fly higher.
That's amazing. So this next question that I ask, it always gets people thinking. They're always probably thinking, "Andy, why do you even ask me this? It's not relevant." But I always say, looking back, and this provides some context on the whole strengths-based development of yourself. Looking back, how do you think your life would be different today if StrengthsFinder never really made its way in there? If this tool didn't exist, if you were never introduced to the Clifton StrengthsFinder and took the assessment?
When I saw that question, it was kind of, everything would be different because it has informed the work that I do. So yeah, it's completely shifted what I've done with my life. But I think probably one of the most significant differences is that I would not have had the confidence to step into my purpose and the clarity of what that purpose is. And it's made all the difference. That confidence and clarity has enabled me to spend 7 years trying to get a business off the ground under exceptionally difficult circumstances, with making hundreds of mistakes. But it has been, I have been so confident that I needed to do it, that I have been able to persevere through unbelievable challenges. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't known with the surety that I did where I needed to be adding value in the world.
Well, Janet Dupree, thank you so much for taking some time to allow me to interview you here in Clinton, Iowa, all the way to South Africa. It's been an amazing experience for me. I know that, and I'm sure the listeners will absolutely love everything you had to say, all the insights and education that you're going to provide them. Do you have any closing comments or anything, insights that you would like to share before we close out this show?
So I think I thought about that, and I think for me, just this has been the most exciting journey, and I would so encourage anybody who's thinking about figuring out strengths to take it seriously. Don't just dip your toes in it, but really explore the tool. And then I had a last thought about a client that I saw recently, and it's a very cool story. This woman was referred to me by a colleague. She had recently joined the company. The company were invested in keeping her but she was offending everybody around her. And they said she needs help and she needs it now. And she'd actually been fired from her previous job. And so she was heavily invested in keeping this job. And she'd actually asked for the coaching. I ended up, having the privilege of spending time with her. In her top 5, she had consistency, adaptability, significance, harmony, and maximizer. Absolutely wonderful woman. I so enjoyed spending time with her. She's in the legal profession, which kind of fitted with her consistency. Mm-hmm. But she had this very superior way of dealing with people that kind of was coming a little bit out of her significance, but more out of stuff in her past. And she was open enough to learn and to maximize herself that she allowed me to put my finger right on some of the stuff that was really getting in the way of her success. Mm. And the great news is she kept her job. Excellent. And she's learned a new role in the company. She is now the trusted advisor. She doesn't have to be the boss of everybody there. And for me, that was just one of my most special experiences of helping people see the value in the strengths that they have and learn to manage it in a way that adds value. That was cool. Thank you for this time. It's been wonderful. Great question.
Well, I always appreciate it. Like I said, I learned something new from every single interview, and this one is not the exception. So thank you again for being on the show. Everybody, this is Thematics. This was episode number 16 with Janet Dupree. For more of our content, you can go to UnleashStrengths.com and click on the tab that says Thematics, and you can watch our previous 15 episodes. Every interview we do, like I just said, all the people that we interview provide us with a tremendous amount of education and insight into how they use Gallup StrengthsFinder and StrengthsFinder 2.0 to enhance the lives of others. That's what it's all about. We want everybody to realize they have their unique talents, their amazing strengths, and we want to help them point them in a direction that they can use them to be impactful, to make themselves successful, and just to live a more fulfilled life. If you have any questions for me, there's 2 ways to get a hold of me. Email me, Andy@UnleashStrengths.com, or give me a call on the phone, 815-441-2219. As always, give me a call if you want to be on this show. Again, you don't have to be a coach. You don't have to be a strengths guru. You just have to kind of love the concept of strengths-based development. All right, that's it for this episode. I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.